welcome back. I'm so excited for today's episode, like so excited.
I think we're always excited for every episode.
It pretty much is, like every single time we get someone on, I'm so excited.
They're all exciting. Let's just leave it at that.
I think this one's got a little more piqued my interest because I had so many questions for it. So today, we have Anthony on, and if you haven't figured out by the title, we are talking about animal rehabilitation.
So Anthony, he was a PTA first, and then he kind of went into this canine rehab. He's going to explain it so much better than we can right now in this intro. One thing that he did want us to mention was a lot of this is off his experiences, kind of the programs he went to. And if you want to dabble into this field and kind of learn more about it, to always look at your state laws and your practice acts and everything. But as you'll see going into the interview, it's kind of, I don't want to say like gray area, but things aren't very specific. You'll see.
It's definitely interesting. We had a lot of questions, and a lot of them took me by surprise too. I was actually kind of surprised how much regulation there was on my end. I was actually a little surprised by that. So, like we said, Anthony currently is a PTA. He's still licensed and everything. He owns his own animal rehabilitation center. He has been working for several years as a PTA with humans and animals. And he's currently going and getting, I forgot the certificate off the top of my head, but he mentions it in this episode. But he's also going and getting some...
Or said, or the next. This is a part one, 2 parts.
Yes.
So we forgot to mention that.
There's multiple parts to this. So let's go ahead and let's just dive into it and get barking.
Let's do it.
You're listening to the PT Assistants Podcast with your hosts, Ken
and Laura. Thanks for joining for another exciting episode. All right, perfect. Welcome back again, guys. We are so excited to have a very special guest on, Anthony. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us. Let's go ahead and, if you don't mind, we'll just have you introduce yourself, kind of give us a little bit about you, what currently you're doing. We'll dive into so much of that, but like kind of currently what you're working and where you're working and all that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me. So I'm a PTA, physical therapist assistant, and I've been a PTA since 2015, only in the state of New Jersey. I've been practicing basically only in outpatient orthopedics. A few years back, though, I kind of found that, my canine was limping, and that's my boy Miles, and basically tore his ACL, which is CCL in the dog world.
Didn't know that.
But yeah, so there's a little different stuff in the dog world. But yeah, so he wound up tearing his ACL and started limping a lot. Went to the vet. Basically said, since he's getting close to a senior, his best bet is surgery. Because if it doesn't happen, what winds up happening is there's a 50-50 shot of the other leg just blowing out as well. So,
wow.
Of course, do what's best for my bud, and we get the surgery. Unfortunately, what happened was the 50-50 shot was against us, and the other leg blew out too. So we wound up getting both legs, corrected under surgery. And what wound up happening, though, is the surgeon afterwards didn't really give us much of a rehab protocol, but more of a list of don't do's and just incremented walks, and eventually he'll be fine. So me coming from the PT world was like, blowing out an ACL, just walk it off. Yeah, not so much. So, I told them that I was from the PT world, and there's things I could do to help if you want me to, and this and that. And they still said no, and I was like, I feel like that's not the answer. So I wound up doing kind of like a nosedive into canine rehab, and it existed. Just wasn't really well known. And so from there, doing this kind of nosedive into the rabbit hole, I was researching, and there was really only two places that did it. There was a place in University of Tennessee, their canine rehab practitioner program, and a place called Canine Rehab Institute, and they're called, Canine Rehab Therapist. So I went to the University of Tennessee just because of location. It was closer.
Okay.
That
And so
was
you
really
already
the
had
only reason.
all your PTA license and everything already done.
Yeah,
And
since
then
2015, I
yeah.
was a PTA, right? So after that, I was already qualified to go get this certification. So as soon as you're a licensed PTA, you can go and get qualified for this certification. You just
What if you were
apply.
still a student? Like you wouldn't be able to?
So you have to be in the later years of your kind of license or certification
Okay.
of a PTA. Yeah, you can't have just started your
So they want you to have a little bit of human background before getting it.
yeah, but like I said, you could still be a student, but you have to be probably, I think it's your last
Oh,
semester,
okay.
just
Yeah,
so that
almost
they
like you're
know.
finishing up your clinicals and
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna
basically,
actually
you're
finish.
exactly. And even then, you can't take their certification exam until you get your license. So you can go through the whole
Okay.
Okay.
program, but you got to get your license first, and then you can take your certification exam.
How
Yeah.
long is
Okay.
that program?
So it's a great question because each program is actually different, and
Hmm.
there's now a third program in North Carolina called Companion Animal Therapist, which is still a rehab therapist. Theirs actually seems to be a little shorter than University of Tennessee's, where you do two online modules, you do a week hands-on, you do 20 hours of observation, three case studies. And then after that, once you're all qualified, you take the exam. So, I mean, that kind of time period, it really just depends on you, how quickly you
Hmm.
get through the online modules, because you have to pass all of those things. And I think it's about, the University of Tennessee's anyway, was about probably 30 hours of knowledge there. So,
Okay.
once you kind of watch all the videos, study from the books and stuff like that, and you take their progression quizzes and you pass them, then you qualify for the hands-on kind of courses, which is only about a week, but you're there like morning to kind of early evening, like an all-day thing. Um, but yeah, so I mean, that could be done if you're really gung ho. It could be done in 3 months if you have good contact with the director and everything, and you can get everything done. You have yourself set up with either a vet or a PT that's already done it with the observation hours and three case studies. I mean, case studies sound like a lot, but they're really not because while you're there observing, you should be
You're
taking notes.
doing
And yeah, I mean, you should do two
it's
for
Yeah.
one
it's
right
a
there.
two for one.
It's a
Yeah.
yeah, it's a two for one right there. So what I would say though is, 6 months is probably a good average, is what I would say.
Okay.
But it's at your own pace too. Like it could take you a year. So you do
Yeah,
the
I was about to say it
the
sounds like
online
it's kind of
modules.
cool because
Yeah,
it's you're not set in a time frame that you have to meet in a way,
correct. Yeah. So
which is nice.
but yeah, so the Canine Rehab Institute, I think was the first, and then University of Tennessee came. Now, North Carolina State this is their first year providing their CCAT program. So, and Canine Rehab Institute moved from Florida to Missouri now. University
Okay.
of Tennessee is still the same, and then yeah, like I said, the North Carolina State. So, it's a mix of vets and PTs as instructors as well. So it's pretty cool. There's one that's an orthopedic surgeon, so it's really cool to pick his brain, obviously,
Oh, that's
because
cool.
yeah, it's always
Yeah.
good to piggyback off of an
Translate, yeah.
orthopedic. Yeah. So, but what I would say is, beyond the, anatomy and physiology of a canine and, its kinematics and everything like that, everything's kind of just a review for you. So,
Hmm.
just note that because then they go into PT, right? So
Yeah.
we know ultrasound, we know e-stim, we know this stuff. I mean, they're showing you applications, which is, it's great. But I would say probably halfway through the course, I was feeling a little bit more like a teacher's aide than a student. You know,
You're
One-
like, yeah,
Okay.
I got this.
once you kind of get everything down about the canine, And, even just their joints in general are very similar to ours. Obviously, they're walking on
Mm-hmm.
all fours and we walk on twos, but, they still have an elbow, they still have a shoulder, they still have a knee, they still have an ankle, those kind of things. So they move in the directions that we move in that sense. So, like I said, it's very easy to translate over to a canine. Now, don't get me wrong, they have more vertebrae, they have a few different muscles here and there, but for the most part, it's, the major muscles that we need to know are very similar to human. So,
Well, and the
As
thing
far
too is like
as
the concept doesn't really change on how movement goes because that's just straight up
yeah.
kinematics in general. So it's just knowing how
Yeah, I mean, it's
which one it
almost
is, and then you're good
it's
to go.
not to say that we're the same, but if you put a human on all fours, you would technically,
Be very
PT
close
them
to
the
it.
same. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
In the programs, do they only do canines, or do they touch on like horses or other animals at all?
So there's different programs.
Okay,
So
the whole program would change.
yeah, so even though most of the programs front run the canines, you can do felines as well. But then they have a whole separate equine program as well. So
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a whole
Now,
separate
how
certification and everything. Yeah.
I know you got into kind of wanting to dive down this field because of the fact of your puppy.
Yeah.
Um, but how did you go about it? Because like that's the biggest thing I feel like a lot of people wouldn't know what to do. Like me and Ken kind of did some because we've heard about it. We've never actually known anybody who's gone through it. So we did a little bit of research ourselves, but we were just kind of like, does this even like is this needed? Do we have to have something? Like where do you even start to look for someone? Like there's just so many questions I feel like that are still out there that are so hard to find answers to. So how did you go about it?
Totally. Well, even before my dog, there was always something in the back end because, I was hearing that more and more people are spending money on their dogs. Like they take care of
Hmm.
themselves more than their dogs. And I was hearing like dogs are getting massages, dogs are getting this. And I was like, huh, I wonder if dogs get PT. Um, and it was always in the back of my mind. But then, once mine needed it, and that was the nosedive. So yeah, I mean, the way I got my information, the way everybody gets their information, was the internet. And then I did some outreaches to, the programs themselves. And then I was also just Google mapping places like canine rehab places because I was like, okay, well, if they exist, where are they? And is there
Hmm.
abundance or are they so far apart that, maybe in my area it's needed, So yeah, good old fashioned internet. But then, once you get in contact with the director, they're so gung ho about canine rehab that they wind up, indulging, this is what we do, here's where we do it. We'll teach you everything from, pun intended, nose to tail. But with that being said, always just know your state practice laws.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
um,
I
yeah,
was like, that
once
felt
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So we can jump
so
into the practice laws now.
yeah, but like once you get in contact with them, you're basically you'll be set up for success. You just gotta go through it and everything like that. But finding people, that's fun when you
that's
have
the
to do
tough part.
when you have to do observation. I was taking 45-minute to an hour drive to do
Oh
observations and
wow.
To
stuff
find somewhere.
because yeah, they're not in abundance. But I have to say, since then they've been growing more and more.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing is like we've heard it starting to come up more. It kind of was like, oh, yeah, there was kind of one or two here or there or something like that. But over the past years, I've kind of heard of it. I knew actually one of our clinical rotations in school, there was a place outside of Vegas itself, like Pahrump, which is cut like 45 minutes away or a little bit longer than that. But
Mhm.
they did a mix. They were both. They were animal rehab and they saw things from alpacas
Yeah.
to humans. And so like they got to get a little bit of a mix. And that's kind of like where I first kind of really heard about it.
Yeah.
I was not part of that one because I didn't really want to drive that far, honestly. Um, but I heard about it and it's just kind of like, okay, then I heard someone here and there, but it's like, how does that differ from being a PTA? Then do you have to become a certified animal rehab to be a PTA to work in that field? Do your state practice laws still go over who technically governs you. Is it a vet or is it a PT? Like,
Yeah.
here's where all my training questions are going to start coming towards you.
So yeah,
One at a time, Laura. One at a time.
here's the thing. To my knowledge, out of all 50 states, none of them require the actual certification, right?
Okay.
So there is no law that states you need a certification to do animal rehab. Now,
As of now.
with that being said, as of now, because again, this is growing, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, things will change, laws will change, rules will change. Even the programs themselves will have to get some sort of like accreditation, I guess, if they're not already. But yeah, so you technically, like a veterinarian can just decide to do an orthopedic surgery and then rehab it afterwards, and they're fine. A PT in the state of New Jersey can also see that animal after an orthopedic surgery. Now, the thing about New Jersey is it's very gray, right? And most of the times it's told that, you know, it's gray and just piggyback of your own practice laws, right? So if an animal is seeing you for physical therapy, a PT needs to see and do the evaluation, and PTAs can do the treatments, right?
Okay.
So, but, you know, some grayness areas say, well, you still need a referral from a vet for that PT to see that animal for rehabilitation. I would say most practices, including mine in New Jersey, work with a vet. So that's just the way it is. It's just more of a safe house because we're the PT side.
Like you become very hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's a beneficial that there's collaboration there because PTs don't know more than vets do, and vets don't really know as much as PTs do in that translation. I mean, after years and years of it, there could be like a parallel, but let's be honest, this is a growing field and it's still young, so there's never that, you know, hierarchy of either, but in that knowledge. So collaboration's the best, right? With the vet and the PT to get the optimal outcome for the animal. It's not about, you know, our vet's better or our PT's better. You know, let's do this together to actually get the canine better. So yeah, so that's the deal with New Jersey. I know Pennsylvania, since I was looking in that area as well. Pennsylvania, you need supervision no matter what. PT doesn't matter from a vet as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like on-site supervision, or are they just kind of supervising the case? Do you know?
Yeah, I would say like general supervision. So they definitely need to be on the premises. They don't always need to be watching you doing it, but you know, they need to be on the premises and reachable, you know, in that sense. If something happens with the canine or the PT needs to, you know, do something more or different. Most of the times they're given the freedom, obviously, you know, in the state of New Jersey, it's almost like with a PT and a PTA, the PT is allowed to basically trust as much of talent as the PTA as possible. The PTA is given as much freedom as the PT will give them in that sense. But that's New Jersey. You know, every state's different.
Same like Nevada, a little bit. Same thing.
Yeah. Like technically we could do all the test and measures for an eval and give it right to them, and they say, okay, great, thanks for that, and they'll go to the patient and say, all right, here's the diagnosis, assessment, and plan.
This is what we got.
Yeah. So you know,
and they got to do the paperwork.
Correct, and it's the same in New Jersey. So, but yeah, so the other thing is vets being able to kind of oversee any licensed professional in New Jersey too, where, you know, whether it's PT, PTA, anything like that, even CVTs can do the rehab as well, the certified vet techs.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you can still, as a PTA, technically work as like a rehab assistant and still carry out treatments for the vet as well. But
okay. So can you be supervised just by the vet?
Technically, yes.
Not even a PT?
With no PT there at all?
Technically, yes.
Would that mean
there's no law that says
you're not a PTA?
In New Jersey, there's no law that says you can't, right? So again, this is why everything's very gray.
It's so iffy.
There's no black and white, right? So, but as long as you're being monitored by a higher kind of superficial supervisor in a sense of, or professional, I should say, you know, the vet almost is the PT of that animal anyway. So you're just kind of the rehab assistant in that sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's interesting because I think about like our practice act in our state, and it doesn't address any type of like animals at all. Like everything's referred to as humans.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, okay, well, if I wanted to see what Nevada does, it almost is like I need to go look at vets.
You need to look at both. Yes.
Laws.
You can't
Yeah.
just look at
So it's
your
like you
physical
can't just do it in
therapy.
one.
You need to look at
Mhm.
the vet side of things too. And that's how I figured out Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Because in the Veterinary Medicine Practice Act, it says that the vet has to supervise any other licensed professional. Doesn't mean they don't even say PT. They say
You don't
any other
specify
licensed
anything, yeah.
professional
Yeah.
that's doing rehab. So
That
there,
makes.
and
I get it.
each year those practice acts can change, right? So
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
next year it
They're
could
currently in a
say,
revision
It
right
could
now, I'm
change.
sure.
oh yeah,
Well, and that's
exactly.
like that's the curious thing I feel like about it is it's like, okay, who technically in the long run as this builds, who's gonna get the final say? Is
Well,
this going to
I
over rehab,
know
which will be
I know
interesting.
that vets are
Going to take
they
the final
feel
say.
they feel some type of way about it for sure that PTs are coming into their turf. But again, it piggybacks off of what I said before, where our knowledge and their knowledge should be more of like a team effort and a
Hmm.
collaboration, not I'm better than you or you're better than me.
Yeah.
Like we're trying to make the
Yeah.
animal better. Don't forget, guys. Like we're working on making that animal better, not about who's supposed to be doing it. It's if we're both
Yep.
qualified, let's both do it together and get
Work
this animal
together.
Hmm.
back to
To get the
functional.
goal done.
Yeah, back to the functional goals. Like
Hmm.
what's the big deal in that sense? That's where it's all at. But there's still a lot of vets out there that don't like PTs coming into the sector for sure. Um, I think there's a
No, I can
group.
definitely,
I
I
think
can
there's a
definitely
group
see that. Like
petitioning against
thinking like
it for sure.
they're stepping on their toes and kind of
Well,
crossing
Well,
a little
my
too
and
much.
question is like those people who don't like it, are they doing rehab themselves, or are they just not doing anything and don't want it to change?
so some of the certified therapists that I shadowed two PTs and one vet. And even
Okay.
though the vet was taking in PTs and PTAs to observe, she was very straightforward about how she just did not think PTs and PTAs should be in this world of rehab. She was very straightforward about it, but she's like, there's nothing I can do. I think she is a part of that group that is petitioning against, at least in New Jersey anyway, that's petitioning against, the PT world coming into animal rehab. Um, but she still employs a PT. I don't know. It's very weird. It was a very weird dynamic. I learned what I learned and I moved on.
You're like, I don't want to
I
think
got
of
what
it.
I needed.
It was like
Awkward.
awkward. It was awkward because she still had a PT there and was still letting me observe, but saying,
But at the same
well,
time, I really don't think you should be doing this. And you're like,
I was like,
okay.
what do I say to that? Like,
Yeah.
I was like,
Thanks
oh, okay.
for letting me be here, I guess.
So, but yeah, I mean, I'm still finding a lot of veterinarians too, just, mainstream general practice veterinarians, still not even just believing in animal rehab in general. So it's not even just about, vets doing it or PTs doing it, but how animal rehab still could be kind of like a waste of time where they think, the surgery is good enough and the whole walk it out system, pain and meds and rest, they'll eventually just get better.
So
Yeah.
that's
I'm
kind of
sure
the
that has worked
situation we
and
found
does
ourselves in.
work, but yeah, I mean, that was old school PT, right? Old school
Hmm.
PT,
That was old school, just
they
any
didn't,
type of surgery, too.
yeah,
Medicine.
old school. Yeah, I meant to say orthopedists used to just think their
Yeah.
surgery was enough, and they gave whatever home exercises, and they were like, yeah, if you want to go to PT, sure, what you don't have to, like, you know what I mean? They never
And
really pushed
we're
for it.
still fighting that for some
I'm sure,
orthopedic
yeah, I'm
surgeons
sure in some
in general.
areas.
But the nice thing is in human world is, we can do research and back up because we can get people's also those opinions back. They can verbalize how they're feeling after surgery, after having rehab done.
Mhm.
Where an animal can't really verbalize, hey, I'm still having pain even though I'm not limping type thing.
Yeah,
Um, so
yeah.
there's definitely a difference there. I feel like.
It's definitely interesting, working with an animal. But there's things out there. Colorado State put out a pain scale where it's by body language and behavior. you know, because obviously they can't talk. So they've gauged it by that, which is actually pretty helpful.
That's cool. I didn't know that was existed.
Yeah. So look it up, Colorado State Pain Scale. They'll show you positions and behaviors of a dog and what they think is a pain scale from 0 to 4. 4 being the worst.
So it's still
3
numerical too. So you can,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ken, we're using it on Duncan.
So for my dog, when he was a pup, he fractured his leg.
Okay.
And they took that approach. They just splinted, casted it, and they're like, all right, here's some pain meds, some sedation pills, let him rest it off, and he'll be good.
A lot of times it's
my
remedial and
sister
rest, unfortunately.
Is like, oh, you're a PTA, why don't you rehab him? I'm like, this is kind of, like, I agree, like, similar for sure, but still a little different, like, those behaviors,
if you don't know
how much
the
pain
anatomy.
he is, like it.
Yeah, I mean, I could say honestly, you're just way more gentle with a canine than you are with a human. Not to say we're so aggressive with humans, but at least they can talk back saying, "Okay, that stretches a little much." You know what I mean?
Been there.
But still,
well, you're very in tune to what the animal's movement is. You're like, you don't got that verbal communication. It's all about like that.
And what I think is good about these programs too is they go over behavior, they go over dog handling, they help you become kind of fear-free as well in that sense. And
that was a question I was going to ask.
a lot of it has to do with body language, and a lot of times too, you have to get through a couple sessions for the dog to even trust you for like a full legit stretch. Like these dogs are coming in with anxiety, have no idea what's going on. You're poking and prodding, you're moving their limbs, you're putting them in a box that fills up with water. You know what I mean? Like what is this place? And you know, their anxiety is all over. So of course they're going to be tense when you try to stretch them. The best thing you could do is, you know, be gentle, massage, feed them lots of treats, you know, until the owner tells you.
That's what I was going to ask.
Until the owner tells you that's enough.
People bring their own treats? Do you have?
So yeah, we come with ample treats. We do a lot of all natural kind of like beef and chickens and stuff like that. There are some cases where the owner brings it in because, you know, their pet, they only like these special treats, so we're going to bring them in.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm all
dietary
for
restrictions
it.
and like,
just
use these
listen,
ones.
I'm all
I kind of want to see you do my dog just because my dog is, oh my gosh, he's like the biggest baby, but he's big too. He's 83 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
he's not treat driven though. So like that.
We have some dogs. So we have some dogs that their anxiety is so high that a toy or a treat does nothing. So all you have to do is position yourself and talk with the owner and just make them feel comfortable. You have to get down to their level, right? You have to just, sometimes I'm lying down on my hand in like calendar girl position, just trying to pet the dog so that the dog thinks I'm trustworthy, or at least, you know, some cases you don't even actually get, you know, treatment in. It's more of like getting the dog's trust first.
Relationship.
Yeah, you know, and you're getting some of the treatment in with like laser or shockwave, but you know, all right, treadmills next time. Like the hour's up, we got to go. Because there's some dogs that are rescues that are skittish because we don't know their history. So, you know, a lot of times they're hiding behind their owners, and you know, they're like, what is this place? We're enclosed.
Where am I? What am I doing here?
So
what the hell did you bring me to?
Yeah.
That's the face that my dog gives me.
And then again, you have somebody now that if we can get them to even lay down or stay still, you have somebody poking and prodding in their pain area. So again, like what's going on here? Like, so. Yeah.
As far as the owners, do most of them stay? Do they drop them off? What's the relationship there?
So,
like daycare.
Yeah. So do they feel like it's daycare? Like, hey, here's my dog. Take care of it. All right, I'll be back in an hour, right? Okay, cool.
So, yes to all of the above. In the COVID era, it was drop off, right? COVID era, it was drop off because we're trying to minimize how many people are together, right? COVID started to die down in that sense where, you know, we could start to allow people back in the building, and some people got so used to just dropping off that they're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to drop off and run errands. Okay, great. We'll let you know how it goes.
You're like, at that point, I know this dog.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But yeah, most of the times the drop offs are dogs that have, you know, are basically conditioned and, you know, on the fourth phase of care where it's just, you know, maintenance and making sure injury prevention and that stuff. Right. But every time a new dog comes in, we actually encourage the pet parents to come in as well. We try to empower them because just like in regular PT, what we're doing is we're facilitating and we're educating so that the goal for you is to no longer come to PT, right? Like that's our goal in all of PT, whether it's animal or human. So from the get-go, we empower the pet parent and we give them home exercises right away. And this is what you need to do. And they're also watching us do it in the facility so that eventually we do, you know, with each phase, knock down the protocols of the frequency. And that, you know, this pet parent now knows how to take care of their dog so that they no longer have to come to PT. So we encourage it. Not everybody does it. And not everybody does the home exercise programs.
Yeah.
I think that
even
goes
when
across
it comes to
Some
their
are honest.
animals, even when it comes to animals, we can demonstrate. I have a home exercise program that literally has videos that you can watch. You can do it with them, with the videos. At the end of the day, they said, we just can't do it like you can. You know, our dog just won't cooperate like it does with you. And I'm just like, well, you know, I feel like they would cooperate better with you than me. But okay, sure, whatever.
They're like, they're not used to you doing it. You have to get doing it for them to get used to you doing it. And then they're finally like, okay,
exactly,
fine, you're gonna do this anyway.
exactly. So, you know, then sometimes it's, you know, when we re-educate, then we do see the animal actually getting better quicker because, you know, the parents are actually starting to do the home exercise programs. Sometimes they
Just like humans.
sometimes they just leave it to us. And I kind of say, well, if you can't do the home exercise program, just so you know, it could take a little longer for your functional goals to be met. So just wanted to give you that heads up. But yeah, so we basically try to encourage a stay, but if you want to do a drop off, you can, for sure. And it really does depend too on how the animal performs, right? So
I was gonna ask about like their temperament.
Yeah.
we've even had
what
like
I'm saying.
split sessions where they stay and then they go, right? So like when we're doing treatment like laser and shockwave, their anxiety is so much when their pet parent's there that they don't stay still. And then when the pet parent leaves, you know, they whine a little bit, but at least their body is staying still. And then sometimes when we get them in the underwater treadmill, they're not very compliant with us, but if their pet parent's there egging them on, then they're walking. So again, sometimes it's a split up, or how the dog really reacts to the pet parent being there, whether they're compliant or non-compliant when they're there.
I laugh because whenever you talk about the underwater treadmill, I just think of my dog. So my dog's a mastiff mix, so he's a big boy.
Okay.
He you know, I'm 5'7", and his paws, he's head height with me when he gets on his hind legs. So he's a big boy. But I just laugh because the first time we gave him a bath in a raised tub, so he was just in it and he was hooked up. He tried to hang himself, and I'm literally thinking of like him in the underwater treadmill trying to jump out. Yeah. Half like having a leash on. I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be so funny to watch. But like, how do you deal with like some of that? Because like my dog is definitely one that like new things he does not do well with. But the more consistent you are with something like that, he does start to get better and he adapts to it a little bit better. So I'm sure like there's all sorts of animals. You've had aggressive dogs. Yeah. You've had, you know, ones who are just like, I'll do whatever you want. And then dogs who come in with high anxiety. And,
right.
Yeah. Mine, like, you can give treats up the yin yang. And he's like, F that, no. But, like, for example, when he goes to the vet to get his nails trimmed, we have to drug him. We have to give him anxiety medication because they're like, yeah, he's a big boy. So, like, how do you guys go about that differently? Do you guys, if you guys have a dog who's very high anxiety where you can't get anything done, does the vet like recommend certain medication for them? Do you reach out to the vet? Like, that's where my brain is right now.
So yeah, I mean, we've definitely gone that route before, where we've told the pet parent, you know, do you have anxiety, you know, things, supplements, this or that, medications that you could use if they're super anxious and stuff like that. Sometimes that doesn't even work. Some dogs are so anxious in a box that fills up with water and then the ground moves that they have no rationale for it and they just freak out, right? They just, in their brain, nothing makes sense. Get me out of here. My primal instincts are kicking in.
Oh, no.
Yeah, like, this is apocalypse. I'm supposed to be running for higher ground, right? Like, this is what my primal instincts are saying.
I can picture it.
But, you know, a lot of times it is repetition, right? And dogs are very adaptable to routine. If you keep creating that routine, then they will eventually walk. Now, there's a very low percentage, I'd say 5% or less dogs will not go on the treadmill because they won't do it. I just had one recently. He just won't do it. He's a shepherd mix. His pet parents were there, food, toys, this, that. We were in the tank, we were out of the tank. Just won't do it.
It's like,
he
do you know
freaks
how long
out.
it takes to blow dry my hair? That's what he was thinking.
Well, he's the worst part about it is freaking out, and he has, he's coming in for back pain, and he's going all over the place. I'm like, all right, well, this is not good for his back, so let's get him out and let's do something else, right? Because the underwater treadmill is not an end all, be all. There are some practices that don't even have it and get great results, So, but yeah, I mean, listen, I had a 200 plus pound Newfoundland get ACL repair, and boy, oh boy, is he fun to try to get in the tank. And it's mostly the big dogs that are such babies and like want to collapse and don't want to go in.
You won't move me.
Like scared of ramps. Like we have a ramp that goes into the treadmill so you can get in safely.
He's like, hell no.
Nothing.
He's like,
So what do we do? One person takes the front, the other person takes the back, and we're trying to lift this guy in, and we're just trying to get him in there.
You need to get a Hoyer lift.
Oh my God.
Yeah, doggy Hoyer.
Seriously. But then, what we do is we have like steps and stools around the tank where, we try to bring things down to their eye level to minimize jumping, because we don't want them jumping, whether it's back pain or, fresh off the boat surgery, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we're also petting their head to make sure that their head is technically controlled, right? So if their head's controlled, they can't really jump up either. So those kind of techniques. I mean, we still have jumpers no matter what. We just try to minimize it as much as possible. They're wearing a vest with a handle on it too, so we try to contain them that way. I can tell you some of my crew aren't always happy with the bigger dogs because they're a lot of work. But yeah, we've had Great Danes, we have Newfoundlands, what do we have? Leonbergers.
But they usually give you a good lot of loves afterwards.
Oh,
it's my dog. My dog's
they're mushes. They're mushes, but they're also the biggest.
They're the biggest
the
babies.
biggest babies, the biggest scaredy cats. Like anything that they have to do stabilization wise, like wobble boards, boom, just drop down. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Can't make me do it. I'm heavy. I know it. You can't.
I know my
You
weight.
can't make that. Exactly. So
he goes, I can bite you all day long, but I have no really
meanwhile,
make you guys pissed off.
Meanwhile, the medium and small dogs are like trotting through the treadmill like they're having a ball. Some of the pups we can throw in like toys and everything, and for them it's like this is a playground.
They're like, this is great.
Yeah. So. But yeah, so there's a few techniques we do try before we discontinue a underwater treadmill, but for the most part they work. There's just a low percentage that it just doesn't happen.
It just doesn't. So. Which is that's like anything we do. Even working with humans, you can try one thing with one person. Like for example, E-step.
Yeah.
Most people love it.
Yeah.
But you get those one-offs that are like, I hate that feeling. It feels like ants are calling.
Yeah,
me.
Like super sensitive.
You're like,
yeah.
Okay.
Like you were supposed to know that, okay?
Yeah. And you're like, all right. All right, guys. So that is it for part 1.
It is to be continued.
Yes. So we have so much more we're discussing.
Get it together, Laura. I got you. Don't worry. Be sure to do all the things like, comment, share. In the description below, we left links to his pages, his emails, the programs. If you're interested into animal rehab, we'll leave all those in the description below. And follow us on Instagram. Check out the YouTube. Join the Discord. All the things. And until then, we'll catch you in part 2.
Yeah, which will be this Friday. So we'll talk to you soon.
Fiend. The information in this video or podcast is not intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained in this video or podcast is for general information purposes only and does not replace your professors or a consultation from your own doctor or healthcare professional.